Shortly, I'm going to be joined by my good friend Phil. He's a friend of mine that I met through chess nearly 30 years ago. And excitingly, over the last 30 days, he gained 120 rating points. So we're going to have a discussion about his chess improvement. But as you can see here, on April 13th, his classical rating on Lichess was 1560. And yesterday, he got it up to 1680. So that's a 120 point swing increase in 30 days. And so he did take some active measures to try to improve his chess play. And so we're going to discuss that today. We're going to connect via Skype in a little bit and record it. And be interesting to see what Phil has to say. So the interesting thing is Phil is 77 years old, and I believe he's going to turn 78 this summer. He's a veteran chess player, and he's also a very likable guy and a glass half full kind of guy. So it'll be interesting to chat with Phil about his chess improvement. All right, so I'm happy to have my good friend Phil joining me today. He's had some pretty tremendous progress on the chessboard, actually. He gained, I just got done showing you on the graph, but he gained 120 points in exactly 30 days. And Phil and I actually go way back. We met 29 years ago, almost 3 decades ago, the summer I graduated from high school. And a friend of mine from my high school chess team and I were playing at the university library, and we ran across Phil, and I guess, we've been friends ever since. And that's one of the cool things about chess is you meet these lifelong friends. My friend that I was with when I met Phil, I actually still study with him almost pretty much religiously once a week. And so that's kind of a cool thing about chess, like a side benefit. But what we wanted to do is Phil and I talked, and there was 4 kind of key points that led to his improvement. So we thought we would discuss those 4 points, and then maybe we'll have Phil, after we talk about those 4 points, will kind of explain some of the positive benefits he's seen from chess. Does that sound all right, Phil?
That sounds just great.
So we kind of broke it down to 4 points, and a couple of them are just kind of general points, and a couple of them are kind of chess axioms. So the first thing, and Phil and I, by the way, we study chess together quite a bit, probably at least once a week or so. But one thing that Phil did recently was he kind of simplified his approach to openings. Not that he plays simple openings, but he kind of plays a certain structure. And he plays the accelerated dragon as black, and he's kind of been playing a similar structure as white now. So is there anything you wanted to talk about on that, Phil? It seems like you're playing them structures pretty well and kind of doing well by sticking with something that works.
Well, to talk about the social connection of chess, I'm going to mention a couple other things about myself. I'm an athlete. I was a wrestler and a football player, and not a really good wrestler by any means, but a wrestler of consequence. I once drew a guy that drew the national champion. And later in life, a friend of mine is also through a Christian men's group, a friend of former Olympic wrestling champion John Peterson, who I think won the 180-pound class in 1972 and 1976. And he's a friend of Gary Moore's, who's a lifetime friend of mine. And as I think about this, chess and wrestling have been both very important to me because they've been like a hook, like a polar star, like something that could pull you out of a bad place. So anyway, I got to meet this John Peterson through Gary Moore, and we got talking about comparisons between wrestling and chess. Because in a really tough 5-minute chess game, you burn about as much cognitive energy as you do in a college wrestling match. There's been, I could look up the citations, but It's massive amount of cognitive. Your neurons are just on fire in both instances. And I got talking with Peterson about this and that after he got talking about languages with my wife, and he was saying, well, as an American wrestler, he had to wrestle. He wrestled freestyle. He had to wrestle lots and lots of Europeans, and they were really good at the part of the freestyle match where you're up on your feet, almost like a bunch of ballet dancers rather than wrestlers. And Americans weren't so good at that. But once you got them to the mat, an American was absolutely ferocious and would rip a sink off the wall if it were legal to win the match. And so what I thought about that is chess has a lot of different opening variations. And in some ways, if you don't know them, you just can't know them all. And people spend their lives trying to do this, and other people fall into traps. If you fall into a trap because somebody has memorized it for 27 moves, what's the fun in that? Well, that's not much fun. But if you can take that guy to the mat and you think about these these rules kind of articulated themselves as Brock was explaining them to me. And I watched a video where a guy was making an argument for not moving a piece twice in the opening, developing everything, uh, not making an exchange, not initiating it, and generally yourself, but letting your opponent do it, because the last person in the exchange seems to do better. And so I thought that if you did that, then maybe you could be careful. You could try to be cumulative and wait for your opponent to make a mistake. And that's what I've done against players that I have no business beating. It's not that I bore them to death. It's almost like I'll take their favorite variation and say, well, go ahead, do that. I'll play this variation. And you may think that you've got a good position. And you may think, then you'll wonder, why isn't this working for me? And meanwhile, I've been able to concentrate my energy where it's important and sort of focus in and try to keep it simple. So axiomatically, I guess I would say always think that same thing. Like today, I lost a game against somebody 300 points above me, and I lost it because I didn't keep it simple enough. I moved a piece twice in an opening. I was building something up very well, but I didn't look at the simple thing first. I remember one of Brock's teachers saying, how does that go on? If you see a good move, wait, you may find a better move. And the other thing is, check the board one last time to make sure you didn't leave something hanging. And if you do these things, maybe it won't make you into a master, or maybe it won't make you into an expert, but it will bring your level of play up to the point where you can feel really good and satisfied. It's almost like Nino Machiavelli was a famous Italian political theorist. And what you want to have is you want to have virtue triumph over fortune. You don't want to have bad luck triumph over your effort. And if you put a huge amount of effort and then you slip, that's bad luck, and nobody wants that. Or as George C. Scott said when he played General Patton in the movie Patton, you don't want to die for your country. You want to get that other stupid SOB to do it. And I think that's the thing on the board. We seem to have come to a point where we're both at ages when you wouldn't expect cognitive improvement. We seem to be punching above our weight. One of the things Brock's brought up is, in a way, you use your opponent's negative energy against him, and you don't find yourself exhausted even if you lose. Now, it's hard for me to say, to be analytical. It's hard for me to say, well, I lost this. What I want to do is tip over the board and stomp out of the room, slam the door. But what my better self tells me to do is look and say, why? And then say, well, maybe never again, you know. And I can say at times in my life, recently medically, I just got done talking with my physician. I was in some pretty dark places. I had a perfect storm of comorbidities, which I'm dealing with now, and I've made a great deal of improvement. And chess, even when I was in a nursing home and there was no place else for me to go, I had a chessboard and I could play on that board. And I realized that my cognitive ability, my physical ability was limited, but my cognitive ability was hanging in there. And my literary ability is hanging in there. And so chess is really the thing that kind of pulled me together. And now that we're running an experiment, and I keep thinking there must be older people in areas of cognitive endeavor that if they can find a way to accommodate and then draw on their experience and memory, they have a lot more useful capabilities, even if the political aspect would say the idea is to drive them out of the workforce. Well, one way to keep you in the workforce is to have something to come home to when you're working. You know, say, well, instead of, okay, I'm just going to say this. Instead of coming home and getting shit faced and watching the television, I'm going to get this person on the board, and I am going to take it out on my opponent. Let that rage be creative rather than self-destructive. Is that enough for now?
Yeah, that's great, Phil. So yeah, you touched on all the points we had discussed, and it's kind of, when you look at the graph of Phil, since he's kind of really been focusing hard and implementing these ideas, it's kind of statistically undeniable how it's went. So, I mean, is that how you feel? I guess just to wrap it up, you just feel like you're playing with like a lot more, like less effort, yet getting better results. Is that how you would kind of say it, like using your opponent's weight against them in wrestling or something like that?
Yeah, I would say that. And as a matter of fact, I was going to keep this quiet, but we have kind of a plot. Uh, I'm an acquaintance of the many time state champion Alex Betaneli. Is that his last name? Yeah. And I knew him when he was about 12 or 13, and then I started to watch him improve and become the chess coach at Madison West High School, and I would love to beat his students. But as I told him, I knew him. I knew him when he was a goofy little kid, and now he was like a bottom line international master. Well, Alex, if you're out there, and if you would like to contribute to our project, I know a couple people who would love to play a consultation game against you, kind of like a spotter sniper team. So, and the thing is, in saying this, I mean, I know where he lives, sort of. He can be found, and I bet he won't turn down the challenge.
Yeah, well, the last time I played him was in the Dean's Cup, which is a competition at UW when the law school takes on the medical school and a bunch of different competitions.
You played him?
In chess, of course, I happened to draw him. You drew who you would play, and then you get points based on how many wins you get. And of course, I drew him, and he was quite excited by the whooping that he laid down on me. So it would be fun to get a rematch.
So law school strikes back against medical school, huh?
The lawyers always win in the long run, don't they?
Well, hell always wins in litigation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they got all the lawyers.
Let's end it there. And thanks for coming on and sharing your success, Phil. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and I wanted to I reached out to another former chess player, but I reached out a bit too late. But I won't make that mistake this time. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, sounds good. Well,
You know what this reminds me of? Okay, the enthusiasm I feel right now in the Lord of Rings, the Rings. You remember the death of Boromir, where he's taken over by the ring, and then he realizes the error of his way, and he dies. And Strider and the hobbits say, "Okay, now let's go shoot some orcs. Well, let's go looking for some chess masters."
sounds good to me. We'll see if we can get a consultation game going.
Okay,
All right. Thanks for coming on, Phil. Appreciate it.
what do you think his fee is? $10.
We'll find out. Maybe we should make it based on the result.
I love that.
All right, I'm gonna hang up recording here, and then we'll continue to chat.
Okay.